It is useful to recall the conventional wisdom regarding vice presidential picks. First, do no harm. But Governor Palin, 8 weeks after her selection, seems to be continuing to do harm, even when attempting to knock down the latest unflattering revelation on the $150,000 worth of designer clothes purchased for her by the Republican Party. That whole thing is just bad, the governor told the Chicago Tribune. Oh, if people only knew how frugal we are, it's kind of painful to be criticized for something when all the facts are not out there and are not reported. The governor said that the clothes are not worth $150,000 and they were bought for the Republican National Convention, even though many of the billing days happened after that convention ended. As the Tribune noted as well, Palin has been wearing pricey clothing throughout the fall campaign. Meanwhile, with Fix News' Sean Hannity,
the RNC spending money on clothes. Those clothes are not my property. We had 3 days of using clothes that the RNC purchased. If people knew how Todd and I and our kids shop so frugally, my favorite shop is a consignment shop in Anchorage, Alaska called Out of the Closet. And my shoe store is called Shoe Fly in Juneau, Alaska.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not Fifth Avenue type of shopping, but RNC purchasing some clothes that are all they're either returned or they're going to charity. It's not my property.
Out of the closet, you say. Meantime, turns out that the highest paid individual on the McCain campaign for the first half of October was Amy Strozzi, who earned $22,800 in 2 weeks, according to the Washington Post, as the governor's makeup artist. An Emmy-nominated So You Think You Can Dance makeup artist, mind you. And coming in a distant second, $12,500 for the same time period, Senator McCain's chief foreign policy advisor, Randy Schooneman. And then there is the problem of giving different answers to the same simple question. Governor Palin, in an interview with Brian Williams, broadcast last night, and an earlier one with Katie Couric a few weeks ago.
Governor, are you a feminist?
I'm not going to label myself anything, Brian, and I think that's what annoys a lot of Americans, especially in a political campaign, is to start trying to label different parts of America, different backgrounds, different. I'm not going to put a label on myself.
Do you consider yourself a feminist?
I do. A feminist who believes in equal rights, and I believe that women certainly today have every opportunity that a man has to succeed and to try to do it all anyway.
Let's call in MSNBC political analyst, columnist for CQPolitics.com, Craig Crawford. Good evening, Craig.
Hi there.
All right, people who go before cameras get hair and makeup, all appearances to the contrary, even you and me. But, Palin's hairstylist was $10,000 for the same 2-week period as the $23,000 makeup artist. When your campaign is trying to live and die by Joe the Plumber rules, don't you have to pay a little bit more attention to the price tag?
Yeah, it makes poor old John Edwards' $400 haircut pale by comparison. This kind of money, sure. I mean, this woman has been a master of symbolism throughout her short political career. It's just that sometimes symbolism without truth just becomes demagoguery, Keith, and that is the problem I think she's facing. Is the image that she put forth is not adding up with all the fact checkers that we have in presidential campaigns. All
right, and to the substance, the governor had a kind of twofer today, this gaffe on fruit fly research, which I think Richard Wolff aptly described, and depositions on Troopergate 2. Is she devolving into a perfect storm? Is this going to be taught in textbooks, how not to be a vice presidential candidate?
We haven't seen a first impression this bad since Dan Quayle, and Dan Quayle never came back, although I do think she's a bit more skilled politically than Dan Quayle, but not enough so in the next 2 weeks, or less than 2 weeks. You get a second chance maybe for a first impression, but not with just 11 days to go.
And the governor was wearing nice, new, more scholarly kind of glasses today. We don't know. She might have had them for 25 years. But these various perceptions of her are beginning to take root. How hard is it for her or for anybody in that campaign, not merely to try to turn that around, but really to make any kind of dent in that impression in the last 11 days?
I think that was the effort they made today with this speech, to try to put some gravitas into her speeches, and they may try to do that some more, but there just isn't much time left for that, and I think she's going to have to, if she's going to have a comeback, it's going to be after this campaign.
Our own Chuck Todd commented on the apparent discomfort. He said there was a tenseness between Senator McCain and Governor Palin when Brian Williams and Chuck interviewed them earlier this week. Senator McCain, what is his, any way of estimating where he stands on Governor Palin right now? Does he think this was a mistake? Is he still convinced this was the right, bold move, no matter what the outcome eventually is?
Well, publicly, we're not going to see much other than body language to suggest that, and I agreed with Chuck, with some of the clips I saw of that interview, just the way he would look at her. You got to wonder if he wishes he'd picked Joe the plumber for running mate after what's happened with this choice. But it will happen. If McCain loses, there'll be a lot of finger pointing, and some will be pointing at him and others at her. But ultimately, it was his choice. The thing about picking a vice president running mate is that it's the only presidential level decision that a candidate makes. I don't like that. I would like to see. I would like to see coverage where we would learn more about other cabinet choices, and so we could learn more about how people are going to govern. But unfortunately, this is about the only choice, and John McCain blew this one.
The beautifully coiffed Craig Crawford of MSNBC and CQ Politics. Pleasure always, sir. Have a good weekend.
All right. Good to see you.